How do you know that you're profitably hiring people in your business to come in, help you out, take stuff off your plate, and ultimately help you make more profit? I'm Dr. Alex Sangar, the Profit Doc, and today we are going to dive into how to make sure you are hiring or retaining employees profitably. Let's dive in. So we help a lot of people figure out how they take home more money, how they actually keep more of the money that their business is making. And one of the big questions that we get a lot is, how do I know that the person I'm about to hire is going to be profitable for me? Or how do I do kind of a profitability check-in, if you will, of my own business? Let's talk through that, because we had a client who came to us last week and they said, I just feel terrible about my business. I don't think it's going in the direction I want. I'm actually thinking about closing up shop. We said, whoa, wait a minute. Let's go in. Let's look at the numbers and see where you're really at. And as we did this profitability assessment, we actually realized they were in a great spot. They just needed to get a couple more clients, or in their case, patients per week on their calendar, and they would be in an amazing spot, even with their team. And in other cases, we've seen that people have been paying employees for a really long time. They're actually losing money by hiring employees that they thought were generating profit for them. And they weren't. And it's because they didn't go through this simple exercise. So let's dive in. We'll get out the whiteboard here and we'll figure out, how do you understand the profitability of your employees? Okay. So there are really two different reasons that you would hire an employee. Number one is for buying back your time. Okay. Number two would be to generate more revenue than they're costing you in order to hire them. So let's go first and look at this time side of the equation, okay? If you're hiring an employee for time, then how do you see if they're profitable or not? Because they're not going to be generating profit, right? So this is stuff like admin-oriented tasks, things that take stuff off of your plate. Well, how do we assess profitability? Let's look at this. If you haven't hired yet, then this is a really important question to ask yourself. Or if you have hired, you have an admin or front desk, if you have a brick and mortar facility, and you don't know if they're profitable, let's look at this. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, what's the value of my time? You as the owner, what's the value of your time in the business? So how do we find that? Well, we got to figure out how much money you're making in the business and how much time you're spending to make that money. So it's some pretty simple math, but we look at how much money do I make in the business? I like to do it on a monthly basis because you know your monthly numbers pretty well. So monthly, how much do I make? Great. Now let's look at how much time do you spend each month. The easiest way to do this is to take a look at, on a given week, how many hours do you spend working on the business? Okay. Working in the business, working on the business. I won't count thinking about the business, but how much time do you actually spend working? Maybe it's 40 hours, maybe it's 60, maybe it's 20. You're going to multiply that by about 4.3 if we're being exact. That gives us a number of hours that we work per month. Okay. Then we can take that time that you spend and the money that you make, throw it in this little equation to see what's your dollar per hour. Okay. So now look at what's my amount of revenue that I make divided by the hours that I work. That gives me my dollar per hour value of my time in the business. Now, a lot of business owners, when they see this number, they think, gosh, I could be making more at a fast food joint. And well, you're probably right in the early stages. The whole goal of your business is to be able to control this number and move it up. How do I keep the value of my time increasing each month in my business so that I'm making or generating more dollars per hour? And this is where we start to look at when it really makes sense to hire someone for time, for buying back time. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to look at if the dollar per hour that I generate is, let's say it's $30 an hour that I generate for my business. Okay. Then I need to just see, how can I go offload tasks that I'm already doing in my business for less than $30 an hour? Right? And simplified, I get it, but let's say maybe it's video editing and I'm editing a bunch of videos for my coaching business or for my agency, and I could outsource that for $10 an hour. Well, that's some pretty sweet arbitrage there. What we've said is I'm going to hire off something that's $10 an hour to free myself up to do more $30 an hour tasks. And the cool thing is, the more you hire off tasks like that are lower dollar per hour for you, the higher your dollar per hour starts to become. Because now instead of doing $10 an hour tasks, you're doing $40 an hour tasks that are raising your hourly average, so to speak. Okay. Don't get bothered by the math. Just know, can I spend less money than I'm generating per hour and then go use that time on the other side to go make more money? Now, if you're not filling that time with something that makes more money, then it's not going to be worth it. We're just handing off our job, right? That's not what we want to do. We want to create more income per hour. All right, cool. That's hiring for time. Now let's look at the other side, hiring for profit. When I'm looking at hiring for someone that will actively make money in my business. Maybe it's a salesperson, maybe it's an employee who's going to help with client fulfillment. What I want to do is sit down and look at what is the total cost of this employee in my business. Most of the time, early business owners just think about the salary side of that equation. So we definitely have salary, but what else do we have? We have taxes on top of that. We have to pay employee taxes. Then we have bennies sometimes, the benefits, right? If you're hiring people and giving them benefits, that's an extra cost. Sometimes they require more space. If you have a brick and mortar facility, maybe you need an extra room, or maybe it's stuff like extra software, right? If you have a software like Monday.com that we use for a lot of our project management and you have an extra employee, there's an extra cost for that. So tally up all the costs for what does it take to have this employee actively working for you. And then we get a total dollar value there, usually for a month. Okay. Then what I need to look at is I need to compare that to the revenue side of what they're actively generating for me. So how much revenue are they responsible for? If it's someone who's doing client fulfillment, then it's really easy to see how much are they generating. If it's someone who's seeing patients at a clinic, cool. How many patient visits do they see and what rate are we billing at? And I can see what's my total revenue. Now the goal as a business owner is to get to the point where you can see a multiple of their cost as income. Meaning if someone costs me $4,000 a month, I want to make sure that they're bringing in significantly more than that so they're profitable. So a good rule of thumb is to expect a 2 to 3x return on your employees that are generating you revenue. Okay, that's as a baseline number. Some employees, if they're salespeople, they might be generating way more than that. And we know that right away, an employee isn't going to be generating 2 to 3x, right? There might be a month, 2 month, 3 month period where they're onboarding, they're coming up to speed. Maybe if you own a clinic, they're building up caseload. Or if you're an agency, they're sort of getting used to the onboarding process, right? But either way, just know there's a little bit of lag time before we're going to see that true benefit. But the big important thing to look at this is if you're hiring right now for profit especially, and you run these numbers and your employee is not profitable, then what you need to ask yourself is, what capacity do they have to add more, whether it's client load or patient load to their schedule? What's the max sort of theoretical profit that you could get out of that employee at their current compensation rate? So maybe I'm hiring someone at $25 an hour and I see a final cost and they cost me $5,000 a month. And I look at them and I say, gosh, if I fill out their schedule, I'm only going to get $5,000 a month of revenue from that. Well, then that employee might not actually be profitable, they're break even. And that's what we see sometimes. I had a case about a month ago where as we broke down these numbers, it was costing an employer $300 a month to employ someone after all the benefits, after everything. And they were effectively losing money every month. And they were doing work to get that employee clients. And so we looked at it and said, well, why would we ever do this? Let's go in and restructure. So we'll leave the restructuring side of the conversation for another day. Hopefully this was helpful to see, how do we look at these two things? How do we look at hiring for time, hiring for profit, and assessing profitability of each of those? If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Let us know below. Right now, do you feel like your next hire is to hire for time or to hire for profits? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear it. And if this is something you want to dive deeper on, you can click the link below. We have an entire profitability workshop that we did. We'll give you free access to it. You can dive into which offers of yours are making the most money. How do you assess the overall profitability of your business? You're going to want to check that out. You can click the link below. See you on the next video.